Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about a few key terms related to the MAP growth assessment. And this is going to help to ensure that we're all on the same page when discussing both the test and also the data that it provides. So let's jump right in. The first term is adaptive assessment, and the MAP growth assessment is an adaptive assessment, which means the difficulty of the questions on this test are going to change based on the student's answers. So for example, on the reading assessment, I always like to use reading examples because that's what I most often use in my own classroom as an English teacher and a reading specialist. So on this reading MAP assessment, if a student correctly answers a question about the main idea of a nonfiction passage, the next question is going to be more difficult. But if they answered the question incorrectly, the next question will decrease in difficulty. And this is going to provide a really customized report of what students know and can do. And the cool thing is it can also be shorter than a traditional assessment because you might not need as many questions to figure out what students know and what they're ready to learn. The best comparison to me for an adaptive assessment is a GPS navigation system that recalculates the route based on the driver's progress and adjusts directions according to their location and decisions. And that's going to ensure an efficient and personalized journey, just like an adaptive assessment, like the MAP growth test does. So our second term is a RIT score. And a RIT score is basically just a numerical representation of a student's performance on the MAP test. So after students take the test, part of what they will receive, part of some of the data that they'll get back, and as will teachers, is a number, and that is a RIT score. And RIT just stands for Roche units, which is just a unit of measurement. And the number basically quantifies a student's ability. And that's going to allow for you as a teacher or an administrator to compare or parent even, I should say, to compare performances amongst students or groups of students. So when we're thinking about standardized units of measurement, right, we can think about a ruler. 1 inch on a ruler should be the same inch on another ruler. It's a standardized unit of measurement, right? So a RIT score provides academic progress in a standardized way across different subjects and grade levels. It's really a standardized scale for teachers and schools to gauge a student's achievement and their growth. And next we have the zone of proximal development. And I think that this is a term most people in the field of education are familiar with from what I like to call teacher school. I don't think that there's a chance that an educator graduated from an education program and did not learn about the zone of proximal development. But if it's been a while, let's go back and have a refresher. So the zone of proximal development is basically the range of tasks that a student can perform with some help and guidance or some scaffolding, to use another teacher term, right? But those are things that students cannot yet do independently. So if we think about this staircase, the bottom step represents what kids can do by themselves without help. And the top step represents what students are not able to do yet, even with help. Okay, those are going to be tasks that are too challenging for them. So we want to focus on those middle steps because those middle steps represent the zone of proximal development. And that's where teachers want to focus on teaching because those are the things that students are ready and able to learn right now with proper guidance, with proper scaffolding. And lastly, we have normative data. I think the word data kind of makes people cringe a little bit and get a little panicky, which I understand. But I think that normative data is a pretty simple concept to understand. It's basically data that provides a reference point or benchmark to assess individual or group performance, okay? So let's say that the normative data for the MAP reading test in the 8th grade shows an average RIT score of 238. And let's say that that's represented on this bar graph as the orange bar. Individual students' scores can then be compared to this norm to determine how well they performed relative to their peers. So if a student's reading RIT score is 245, and that's represented in our green bar, they performed above the norm, while any RIT scores below a 238 would indicate performance below the norm. So for example, our blue and purple bars would represent students who scored below the norm. And that can be really helpful for not only parents and students to understand where they are relative to their peers, but also for schools overall to look at different groups of students, or how even their school is comparing to other schools in the state and nationally. So I hope that this presentation left you feeling like you have a strong understanding of not only the purpose of the MAP test and the data it provides, but how it can be used to drive instruction and make really important curricular decisions. Thank you so much for your time.